Warriors!
It's the agents of Nightvault!
And we're here back again to talk about Nightvault. And we're going to show you off the cards today. Lots of you requested that we showed off the cards,
Yes.
so here we are to do exactly that.
We are going to do what you ask,
So
you are in charge.
Quite possibly, due to GW embargoes, by the time this video goes out, they will have put their card library online.
Yep.
But so you may already know this, but you possibly haven't seen all the minutiae of the heroes, champions.
We're not going to go through all of the cards in too much detail because they will be online, as Robin says, if they're not already. They will be very soon. So we're mostly going to concentrate on the characters and then just show you all the cards that are in there.
Okay, so we start off with my Cursebreakers, Stormsire's Cursebreakers. We've got 3 wizards in the Cursebreakers. So the Cursebreakers are all wizards. Avalon Stormsire is a level 2 wizard and the other 2 are level 1 wizards, and that means they use 2 or 1 dice depending on their wizard level when doing certain things. And they each have 2 attacks before they are inspired. Avalon's attack is an Encounter's Staff, which is 2/2/2, so it's range of 2. It requires 2 hammers and it does 2 damage.
Nice and easy.
Yes. Avalon's other attack is a spell. It's Fulmination. It has a range of 3 and it has a squiggle, swirly thing and 1 damage. So that means he would roll spell dice and he would require one of those. Well, it doesn't. Yeah,
he gets to roll 2 dice, but he has to roll 1 squiggly.
Well, he has basically, it's like an attack. So if he rolls 2 at 2, it's better. If he rolls 2 crits, it's better still because it takes damage.
Yes, and you do get to defend against spell attacks, so I would still get to roll my dodges or shields.
So in some ways, you want as good as possible, really.
Yeah, you want as high a level as you can.
And then he's a fairly standard Stormcast stat line, 3 movement, 1 shield, 4 damage.
And how does he inspire?
He inspires, well, they all inspire in the same way, Pete, and they have to successfully cast a spell, whether that be an attack, a spell gambit from one of the power cards, or
in his case, his ability.
His ability, yes, he hasn't actually got any other spells at the moment, or he could get a spell upgrade potentially, which would also count. And they're moving on to Dawnguard and Rastus the Charmed. They have the same stat line, so they're all 3/1/4, 3 movement, 1 shield, 4 wounds, and 1 spell level. And they are 1 spell level, yes. And they both have the same empower spell action, so it's an action you can take. So it will use up one of your activations, but if they cast their spell basically using 1 dice and they get a lightning, it's a spell action lightning empower. They will both basically get to re-roll an attack dice the first when they're making an attack. Now, the sort of charm, if you like, of this is that if you do successfully cast that, say, on the first activation of a turn, then you're immediately inspired. So the next time you're immediately rolling 3 dice. As soon as you've got the 1 extra dice roll, you're already rolling off 3.
It's kind of like it snowballs down. So once you can get that spell off, you can then hit harder, and you also get the reroll at the same time. So it makes you doubly lethal.
Good. Yeah. So their basic attacks are Amos is 1 range, 2 hammers, 2 damage, and then she's got a Tempest Blade, which is 1 range, 3 swords, 2 damage. So you've got the old 3 sword, 2 hammer debate, which I always feel like hammers is better, but
I think swords is better because you've got more chance for crits. But
I
the
know
hammer
that.
attack has knockback.
I know that, but I always seem to fail when I roll 3 swords. So I probably need to go back over the videos and look how many times I've actually failed, but it feels like I fail more often than when I roll 2 hammers. And then Rastus has got an almost identical first attack, but hers is a charge storm stave and his isn't. His doesn't do knockback, whereas hers does do knockback. And his Tempest Blade is charged, which means it has cleave, but it's 2 hammers and 1 damage. So although it's charged, it's not quite so good.
The cleave is handy.
Cleave is good. It's not playing the Nighthaunts. It's not good in this starting box.
It's not good against Nighthaunts whatsoever.
And then assuming you inspire them, then their weapons get linked. These 2, they have linked weapons, which means they roll 3 hammers. Rastus has cleave and does 2 damage, and Dawnguard is 3 hammers, 3 damage. So she is the tasty damage dealer and knockback 1. So she's the tasty damage dealer in this equation.
Yeah, it does seem to be.
Again, in the Nighthorns, that knockback may not come into action that often.
Rastus is less useful unless you're coming up against a shield Warbound, because he gets cleave straight off the bat. Yeah,
and he's good against you guys because he can mince most of the Nighthorns.
That is true.
Although not the tougher ones when they're inspired. The stat line, you may know, it hasn't changed very much. It's still 3/1/4 for these 2, which is interesting. And actually, over here, you can see it says rolls of shield and dodge are successes when this fighter's target with attack action. So that's good, except it is only rolling 1 dice. It's a lot of successes, and I feel like this is GW trying to draw you into playing them as a supporting group. Because if you can get a support in there, then you're all sort of rolling off 5, and if you can get a double support in there, you're rolling off.
Well, it's an auto pass.
Yes,
you can't fail it unless your opponent's got a cleave or something.
Pretty good, yeah. So I think personally I'd rather have 2 shields.
Yeah.
But that's the way it is. Stormside does have 2 shields, doesn't get any extra wounds or anything, but he does have 2 shields, and his powers of his spells. Actually, his first attack doesn't change at all. His staff attack doesn't change. His fulmination goes up to do 2 damage with a range of 3. So
that range of 3 could be very handy.
Yeah, 3 range 2 damage is quite useful.
And the swirly odds on that are 2 in 6, so 1 in 3, and you've got the crit as well. So you've got a 50-50 chance of getting 1 on 2 dice. So it's pretty good. It's a handy attack to have.
It is, and I think there are things in there that can boost it as well. It's not like I think there's a +1 damage card, which so it could be useful. So that's the Stormcast. Pete, what do you got?
So
cards.
I've got many more cards, more than twice as many. My 3 main people in the Warbound for these guys is the Briar Queen, Varclav the Cruel, and the Everhanged, and then they have 4 hangers-on down here, who are your Chain Rasps. Now the Chain Rasps aren't all the same. It's not like the Petitioners. They all have different stat lines, pretty much, which really can be confusing. So we'll start with the Briar Queen. She is also a level 2 wizard, but she doesn't have any casting abilities as standard for her. She has a range of 2, 3 swords and 2 damage, which is fairly standard. It's not too bad. She will come into her own once you can get some spells for her to cast, I think.
Yes, you can get Gambit spells off, straight out of your ploy deck, straight off your power deck, so you might be able to cast something at the beginning, although it will be only 1 shot.
Yes, exactly.
I don't know whether she has any upgrades.
She does have, she's got 1 that enables you to dispel, so we'll cover that in a minute. So she has a range movement of 3, 2 dodges to start with, and 4 wounds. So she is a bit tougher to kill, which helps. We then move on to Varclav. He has a range of 1, 2 hammers and 2 damage, so he's fairly standard again. 3 move, 2 dodges again, and 4 wounds. So again, he's going to be a bit tougher to take out. He also has the lovely action which enables him to move, or push specifically, push all Chain Rasps 2 hexes. So that's all 4 of these guys and the Everhanged.
And of course, all of the Nighthawks have the same ability, don't they?
Yes.
Which is their ability to move through stuff.
Yes, they can ignore lethal hexes, and they can move through blocked or occupied hexes. So you can move through your own guys, you can move through your opponent's guys, you can move through blocked hexes on the board as well, which is very handy.
As long as you don't end up in a...
You have to end up on an empty hex, yes. So the next one we have is the Everhanged. And whilst he's named, he also is a Chain Rasp at the same time. His attack is fairly basic, 2 hammers, 2 damage and 1 range, but he comes into his own a bit more because he has a movement of 4. He's only got 3 wounds and 1 dodge there, so he's a bit weaker to start with.
And the fact that he's a Chain Rasp is good, because that means he's included in the push of Varclav.
Yes,
so
definitely.
he could actually end up floating.
He can go screaming across the board very quickly. Yeah. And it is also worth repeating the fact that Varclav's action is a push, not move. So whereas the Warden's moves people and gives them a move counter so they can't move again, he can keep doing this to these guys and shove them all over the place.
So they could get all of them across the board 8 squares.
Very quickly, yes. You could very quickly get into your opponent's half here. So, that could be very tough to deal with.
Turtling Stormcast, watch out.
Yes, you will be in trouble. And then onto the Chain Rasps. This guy here... He's one of the basic ones, I believe. He has a range of 1 sword and 2 damage. They all move 3. They all have 1 dodge to start with. And they all have 2 wounds. So the only thing that separates them here is their attacks. So 1 range, 1 sword, 2 damage. This guy here is 1 range, 1 sword, 2 damage as well. The next guy has a club, and he has 1 range, 2 swords and 1 damage. So swap around on there. And the last guy has a blade, and he is 1 range, 1 hammer and 1 damage. So this will come into its own a bit more when they aspire. So, as you said, Robin, if they start next to somebody, at the beginning of your turn, they inspire. And they go golden, golden.
It's the start of your activation, isn't it? Which is an interesting part of the mechanic. It's not, you haven't got to just be in base-to-base contract at the end. You've actually got to be at the start.
At the start.
It's a potential risk.
You want to use your abilities to shove people... in your opponent's turn. You want your side steps and your confusions and all that kind of stuff in your opponent's turn. So once the Briar Queen is inspired, she goes to 2 range, 3 swords, 3 damage. She then moves 4 and still has 2 dodges, 4 wounds. So she gets a little bit better. She's not
pretty good.
Massive. She's not bad. She's solid. She's solid, and she's still a level 2 wizard. I assume some of them later on will gain levels as they power up. Some of the more casty warbands, possibly. Varklav, so he gains 1 damage and 1 move. Otherwise, he stays exactly the same. The Everhanged on the end here. Now he, I don't know if his attack doesn't change that much. In fact, his attack stays exactly the same, but he gains cleave, which is very handy, and he gains a dodge as well. So his movement stays at 4, and he has 3 wounds. So he gets much tastier. The Everhanged really does improve, I think, when he inspires. And then down to the Chain Rasps. They all go up to move 4, 2 dodge, stay at 2 wounds though. But that does make them so much better than Petitioners straight away, I think. And even possibly better than some of the other main guys in the Sepulchral Guard deck. So
yeah, and I think they're better because also you've got, I mean, the Petitioners in particular, there's almost no point in bringing them back because it's an action.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can only bring 1 back.
The only time I could think of bringing a Petitioner back is to inspire them and then giving them... there are some upgrades which work quite well to give them extra damage when they roll a crit, because I think they roll 3 swords once they come back, so possibly
but it's an action though, whereas this is kind of like just all part and parcel of your mechanism, and suddenly you're swarming them and you're inspired.
Yes. So the 2 basic chain rasps here, they go 1 damage up, so they used to do... No, in fact they stay exactly the same, and they get 1 extra sword, so it's 1 range, 2 swords, 2 damage on both of these guys. On this one here, who has the club, he rolls 3 swords now, rather than 2, and he has knockback 1. So it could be useful, possibly, and knockback with some lethal hexes around.
One with cleave. And
then, yes, this is the star. This is Headless Harry, nearly Headless Nick's mate. He rolls 2 hammers now, still only does 1 damage, but he gets cleave, and that could be very useful if you can get some plus strength, plus damage on him, something like that. That cleave really does help. So you have 2 cards in here, 2 guys, once inspired, who get cleave, which can be very handy. Yes. So that could, although I think you probably want to conceal weapon on this guy because you want the crits for that.
Yes, crits, conceal weapon, isn't it? Yes.
So so more you want your great strength and your incredible strength on him, and he could be quite dangerous. So there we go. Those are the main characters from each warband. So the next thing we'll run through is just the decks that you get.
So these are the starter decks. We have actually had a game of this, so they might be slightly out of order from how you get them in the box, but they come wrapped. You get 3 decks in the box. You get 1 for the Cursebreakers, 1 for the Nighthorns, and there's a 3rd deck of extra cards which have cards of both warbands in and some extra neutral cards as well. So I'll start, and we'll start with the objectives. So we've got Blessed Banishment. Score this in an end phase if your warband took an enemy leader out of action in the preceding action phase. So this is pretty standard.
Pretty standard assassination type card.
I think most warbands have that card in, don't they?
Yeah, I think so.
Devastating Blow. Score this in the end phase if your warband took 2 or more enemy fighters out of action in the preceding action phase. Particularly good against the Nighthaunts, I imagine. Probably less good against some of the tougher warbands.
Yes.
But it's a pretty good card. Fighters 1, score this immediately if a friendly fighter makes an attack action with 2 supporting friendly fighters. I say Games Workshop or the writers of the game are looking to try and increase support for these Cursebreakers. That card helps with that. It's a pretty tough card to score.
That's really tough. It should be 2 glory, I think.
Hard, especially with 3
with only 3 guys,
Harness the Storm, score this immediately if a friendly fighter successfully casts a spell, and that could be really good if you had that. It's an score immediately card, and you could inspire somebody and get
have
a glory.
That reroll thing.
That is tasty card to have.
It's also nearly impossible to stop.
Yeah,
you just got to cast a spell. I can't stop that.
Score this immediately if a friendly fighter makes a successful attack action. It deals exactly enough damage to take out the target out of action. So it's kind of a Cursebreaker specific precise use of force.
So if you get that and precise use force, that would be 3 glory for 1 kill.
Again, it's good for the Nighthorns because you've got lots of 2 attacks on the Stormcast side, and you've got lots of 2 damage.
2 wounds, yeah.
And then we got a repeat Conquest. So this is from in the old game. It's another card, it's an identical card, and it just works exactly the same way. And then we've got some more repeats. Hold objective 1, hold objective 2, hold objective 3, hold objective 4, hold objective 5.
And as everybody knows, that's basically end your turn, end the phase, standing on the relevant objective.
Yep, and so they are all the same, but with just with new artwork. And then finally another repeat card, Supremacy. I think that's a really tough card. Interesting that they put it in the Cursebreakers deck rather than the Nighthorns deck. That's a tough card.
It is a tough one for them to pick up because you need to hold 3 objectives and you've only got 3 guys. So if things don't go your way with objective placement, you are almost completely stuffed from the get-go.
Yes. Exactly. Now we move on to the power cards. Now, power cards in the new game are split into 3 types. You have upgrades, as usual, which half of your deck has to be, and then the others are now called gambit cards, which are ploys and spells. So these are the gambit cards coming up first. We have Aetherwing Stance. Friendly fighters have +1 defense for the first for the first attack action in the next activation. So that's a pretty good card to have.
If you know somebody's going to be gunning for you.
Timing it right might be tricky,
yes,
but if you're looking like you're going to be swamped, that's a good card to have. Then we have the first spell of the deck. It's a gambit spell. It's Cry of Thunder. So basically, you need to roll 2 lightnings, and if you do, so basically only Storm Strike himself can actually use this one because he's the only one who rolls 2 dice. If this spell is cast, choose an enemy fighter. That fighter and any fighters adjacent to that fighter suffer 1 damage. Seems particularly Nighthaunt. It seems particularly Nighthaunt specific, that one, because there's going to be lots of them next to each other. And then the next spell is a slightly easier cast. It's a spell to cast, and any of your wizards can cast it. The Gambit spell, Empathic Conduction, which basically, if the spell is cast, you can choose a friendly fighter and remove a wound token from that fighter's card.
Nice little easy heal there, and it's 1 squiggly. So.
But it is adjacent, so you have to again
keep everyone clumped together.
Apply that support. We have another ploy, Gather the Storm, which is an innate ability. So we haven't really discussed innate abilities yet, but for the next spell your Warbound attempts to cast. So basically, the lightning bolt, you're giving one of your characters a lightning bolt for free. A free lightning bolt, and this effect persists. So again, that's very useful with the lesser wizards, because they can immediately cast their power spell without any problem the next turn after it.
And it persists till the end of the phase, so you could use it in your very first turn, and then things might not quite go right. Your opponent might play some cards. You think, I'm not going to cast that spell now, but I'll keep hold of that for later. Absolutely, yes, Peter. I hadn't even noticed that element. Yes, that is true. And so I think that's a really good card, especially with that successfully cast a spell objective. Yes,
as well. If
you get both of those out.
Yeah. Lightning Assault. So it's another ploy. Play this after a friendly fighter's attack action that fails. That fighter can make another one against the same fighter. So it's a fairly standard card, just a
reroll a failed attack.
Cursebreaker equivalent. Storm Strike is the next card, and that is another ploy. And this is basically +1 damage to the first attack action with a range of 1 or 2 in the next turn. Again, that is I think we've seen variations of that card. It does rely on a hit though, so it could be completely wasted, that card. And then we have on upgrades. Now we're moving to upgrades. So we've got a specific upgrade. Again, it's Cursebreaker specific. It's a spell action upgrade. So it's a staff. It's only for Stormsire, and it basically enables him to imbue a friendly fighter with an +1 range until the end of the phase. So it could actually boost his own spell to 4 range.
That's pretty nice.
Which is quite nice. It requires a swirl. Okay, and then the next one is an upgrade. It's a Hurricane Step for Rastus Amis. Gives them basically after an attack action they can push the fighter up to 1 hex. Could be useful for getting out of the way of wannabe inspired Nighthaunts.
Run in, chop someone, run off again.
Yep. And then the next one is Lightning Whip. Again, it's Rastus and Amis only, but after the friendly fighter's action that succeeds, deal 1 additional damage to the target of that attack action. So it's basically +1 damage.
Because these guys in AOS, which they're taken from, they have this chain lightning going from both their weapons, which is how they become linked. The lightning starts going between the stave and the sword.
I see. I did not know that. I'm down on the lore. Tempest Might is the next card. +1 damage to all spell actions. Could be tasty, and that goes to anybody. That can go anybody.
Anyone, +1 damage.
Unstoppable Zeal. A specific card for Rastus. Basically, after this fighter attack action that takes an enemy fighter out of action, this fighter can make the attack action again. Good for when swarmed.
Not bad.
Warding Blast. This one is specifically for Amis. Targets all adjacent enemies. It's only a small attack. It's a 1 range, 2 swords, 2 damage attack, but you roll for each, so that's it could be good. Determined Effort, +1 dice for the attack action in the next activation. Now that's a good card. Could be very useful indeed.
I was just going to say that on this one as well, that's very good against Nighthaunts because you're going to get swarmed a lot by them.
Yeah. And then I'm into the generic ones now. Now we've got some repeats from the old game. We've got Confusion.
Swap 2 people.
Sidestep.
Move 1 person.
And then that's it. And now I'm into Universal Upgrade. Well, no, sorry, I've got another Gambit, a new Universal Gambit. Vital Surge.
Oh, that needs 2 lightnings though.
2
That's a
lightnings.
bit
If
tough
this spell is
to cast.
cast, choose a friendly fighter and remove up to 2 wound tokens from their fighter card.
Very nice. And it doesn't have to be an adjacent one there either. It's just pick somebody. It can be all the way across the other side of the board.
Yes, no, they don't have to be adjacent. That's really good. Finally, I've got some universal upgrades, most of which are old. Great fortitude, great speed,
+1 wound,
great
+1
strength.
move, +1 strength, +1 damage rather.
Okay, and then finally there's Lucky Trinket, which is a new card. It's a reaction during an enemy's fight. It's a spell or spell attack action. If the spell is cast and the caster is within 3 hexes of this fighter, roll 3 magic dice. If you roll an exclamation mark or a critical, that spell is not cast and is not resolved.
Boom.
In either case, you discard this card. It's a one-shot.
I feel GW missed a little trick there, and they should have called that one Dispel Scroll. Because that used to be what you'd always have in Warhammer.
Yeah.
You'd always have your loaded character model with a Dispel Scroll every time. 25 points, there we go.
Just stop Vortex of Chaos going
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there you go. Anyway, so those are the Stormcast ones, and we'll move on to the Nighthawk ones. I'm going to start off just, again, these might not be in specific order, so I'm just going to plough through them as they stand. This is the deck that you get. So the first one is Execution, which is scoring the end phase if you kill the enemy leader. Not the easiest thing to do against Stormcast, because they're pretty tough, but nice extra easy one there. Easy to score if you've already killed them, that is. Swarming Spirits, this one I like. You score immediately if 2 or more people move through the same hex occupied by an opponent. So it's nice because it's immediate score. You can use Varklad's ability to swarm over people. I do like that card. Next one is Death Sentence. You score this immediately if 3 or more friendly fighters are adjacent to the same enemy. Now that could be quite easy to do, and it's a score immediately again. So
Score immediately is good.
you can use that to swarm all over everybody. Take the City. I like this one as well, because you've just got to hold all the objectives on a board. So if you get this right at the start, put all your objectives in your opponent's half and leave 1 in your half or very near the middle, that could be pretty easy to score. Treacherous Foe, you score this one immediately if your Warband makes a reaction. Now there are several reaction cards, and that's pretty easy to get, and it's another score immediately. An old one, Annihilation, came in the old deck. Basically kill all your opponent. I still don't see the point in Annihilation. If you've wiped your opponent off the board, you probably don't need another 5 glory, you've already won, but there we go. Denial, stop anybody getting into your half of the board. 3 glory, that's a nice solid 3 glory there. Don't see Denial as much with the current warbands all out now, so there's too many tricks to get into your opponent's half, I think. So, and then we've got Hold Objective 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, just like the other deck. I feel like the Nighthorn benefit more from those than the
I think so.
Stormcast.
Yeah. Anything that's multiples of.
Yeah, just go. I've got 7 guys. You've only got 3.
Yeah.
And then we move on to the power cards and the gambits. So first one for me is a Vengeful Curse. Now this is specific to my warband. I can place after an enemy fighter attack action takes an adjacent friendly fighter out of action. Their attacker suffers 1 damage. So it's a bit like
Bone shrapnel.
Bone shrapnel, yeah, basically. Just nice 1 damage. So I'm going to have people die, so I might as well damage you. Spectral Touch. First attack action, the next activation has Cleave. Not a bad one.
Good against me.
Rending Scream. So this is a gambit spell and needs 2 lightning bolts, so only the Briar Queen can use it. If this spell is cast, each enemy fighter adjacent to the caster suffers 1 damage. Now that's okay, but against Stormcast, I'm probably not going to have more than 1 person next to me. Endless Malice. Play this card after a friendly fighter's attack action that fails, and I can make that attack again. Drifting Advance. Push all my Chain Rasps up to 2 hexes, and they have to end up nearer to an opponent. It's a nice one to have, but because you have to be nearer the opponent, it can limit you somewhat. But it can help you.
Early in the game,
can help you swarm across the board, and get you guys adjacent to people to inspire them. Spectral Parry. Put somebody on guard. I like that. Although the wording on this is a bit weird because it says place a guard token next to somebody who doesn't have a guard token. So it's why they don't just say put somebody on guard. I don't know, but it's still that weird relationship between tokens and states, which I don't think they've quite nailed down properly yet. And then Determined Effort. Now this isn't specific to my warband. +1 dice for the next attack action in the next activation. Always nice. Grinding Earth. This is another gambit spell and only needs 1 lightning. If you cast it, you can put one of the new hexes, which is the Chasm hex, somewhere, and that becomes a lethal hex. And then that lasts until the end of the action phase. Another thing I must say is on that one, it's quite useful to cast it just before your turn, so you can attack someone and maybe knock them back and do an extra damage.
Yes.
Confusion, swap 2 people, that's one from the beginning. Sidestep, move somebody a hex, great speed, +1 move. I'm on to my upgrades now. And I've got Chill Touch. Now this is specific to my guys, and it's specific to Chain Rasps. Rolls of dodge are not successes for defense rolls made during the attack action. This is beautiful to give one of your guys who's got cleave, and luckily only your guys who have cleave are Chain Rasps. So
can you play him on the...
I think so, because it says he's also a Chain Rasp.
Yeah, I think so, but it doesn't say... That's interesting. I think you're
no, that is a good point. Yes. That is a question in one of the games that we play later on. I put this on my Everhanged. Now the Everhanged, obviously, he's not called a Chain Rasp, but it does say that the fighter is a Chain Rasp.
Yeah, I think probably you can, but it's not,
people will argue that until GWFAQ that yes.
Clear.
So I think you can use that. It's handy to put on anybody who's got cleave because it means that you can stop your opponent from using shields or dodges.
Well, that's the one thing that makes you wonder whether maybe you can't put it on it because it's very, very powerful. But
possibly.
Yeah, he's a Chain Rasp.
He's not called a Chain Rasp. He's not called a Chain Rasp, but he is a Chain Rasp. And then people will argue, is that using the name on the card or what? So that's definitely going to need an FAQ from GW, I think, on that one. I've then got Sadistic Strike, which is 3 hammers and 1 damage, and if the target has any wounds on them, it does 3 damage instead of 1, which is pretty nice, and that's specific to Varklav. I've then got Driven by Hatred, +1 dice to your attack action when this fighter makes a charge action. So you've already got 1 +1 dice attack card in there, so that's another one for when you charge. And then got one for the Bride Queen, Curse of the Unbinding. It's a reaction for when somebody casts a spell, and you roll a dice, and if you get a swirly on your spell dice, you stop that spell. But you do have to be within 3 hexes. So it's not anywhere on the board, and you do have to roll dice to get it to go off.
It is a reaction, though.
It is a reaction, so you can keep using it. I'm not sure how often you'd get to use it, but it might be a handy one to have just in case you...
Could be good.
It depends on how prolific spellcasting becomes in this game.
Yeah, and where you are. It depends a lot on board position, doesn't it? But yeah, it's an interesting one.
So here is the next one, Strangling Coil. This one is for the Everhanged specifically, and it gives him a 3 damage attack with 3 swords, which is pretty good, I think. I don't know
if he's got cleave. Oh, no,
he won't have cleave on that one, no. Creeping Terror is the next one. So this is a reaction, and this is after the fighter makes a move action, roll an attack dice for the first person who they move through. So if you move somebody out through somebody else, you roll a dice, and on a hammer or crit, they take 1 damage.
Oh, that's good card.
You could tie that together nicely with a charge attack. So you move through someone, hopefully do 1 damage, and then attack with that person, and then maybe do a load more damage. So it could be very handy. I've then got some basic cards. I've got Great Strength here, +1 damage, Great Fortitude, and then I've also got Escape Artist. This is the last card, and it's a generic upgrade, but it's not an old upgrade. This is a new one, and it gives you a reaction after an enemy fighter's attack action that targets this fighter and fails. You can push this fighter up to 1 hex. Not sure how handy that'll be because they've got to fail the attack, but you never know. Could be handy to get your ability up.
Yep, good for doing the swarming.
Yes. So those are all of the starter decks that you get in the box, and then we've got after that the extra cards that go on top of it. So there are a bunch of Warbound specific ones for each, and some generic ones.
The few generic ones are mainly repeats, aren't they?
I think they are. You get another copy of Lucky Trinket, another Escape Artist, another Vital Surge, and another Grinding Earth. Bearing in mind you can only have 1 in your deck, so these are for the other person who hasn't been given them already. You then get another Supremacy, another Denial, another Conquest, and another Annihilation.
It's just repeats of the
So they're repeats of all the cards. Yes, so that's all the generic ones that you get extra, just to even the playing field should you want to play with more identical decks.
Okay, and then I'll go through the additional Cursebreaker ones. So we'll start off with some upgrades. I've got Rastus and Amis can have Stunning Blow. After an attack action made by an adjacent enemy fighter that targets this fighter and fails, roll a defense dice. On a roll of a shield or a crit, place a charge token next to the attacking fighter.
Ooh.
Could be useful.
That could be useful.
And then I have the Storm, which is an innate upgrade, permanent innate lightning bolt.
Oh, nice.
For spell casting.
That can make it just so much easier to cast so many different abilities.
Disarming Blow next, another upgrade for Rastus and Amis. After an attack action made by an adjacent enemy fighter that targets this fighter and fails, roll a defense dice on a roll of a shield or a crit. Select an attack action upgrade to the attacking fighter. That upgrade is discarded.
Oof, that could be
good.
Could be very
good, but it gets shield or crit. I'm never a fan of the 50-50.
You've never liked your
No.
random ones.
No.
But that's why they become so much more effective, because you've got a 50-50 chance.
Yes. Stormsire can have a blessed blade, which is a blade with cleave, which is 2 hammers, 2 damage.
Useless against the Nighthaunts, but handy against others.
Stormward to ploy now, and play this during an enemy fighter's spell or spell attack action. If the spell is cast, roll a magic dice on a roll of a squiggle. The spell is not cast and is not resolved.
So that's identical to the Briar Queens, but that's a ploy and only happens once. It doesn't have a range on it, whereas Briar Queens has a range.
Safeguard Spirit. There's another ploy. Play this after the first attack action or gambit that takes a friendly fighter adjacent to another friendly fighter out of action, again keeping those Stormcast close together.
Yep.
Your opponent doesn't score any glory points for taking that fighter out of action.
Right.
That's pretty nice, and you've noticed that points is plural, so if you were thinking you might get precise use of force or master stroke or something like that, then you couldn't get it.
Yeah.
So yes, that could scupper some plans there. A lightning step. The first friendly fighter to make a move or charge action in the next activation can move through occupied and blocked hexes, but must end their move in an empty hex. You can give Nighthaunts a little bit of taste of their own medicine.
But you can't ignore lethals.
No, that's true. That's true. Chain Lightning. I think the card everybody wants if you're going to play the Cursebreakers. It's not that powerful, I don't think, but if this spell is cast, scatter 3 from the caster's hex. Any enemy fighter in a hex in the chain suffers 1 damage.
Bang. Could be handy if you've got a lot of people all swarming around.
And then finally some objectives. Purify the Earth. Score this in an end phase if you hold an objective held by an enemy at the beginning of the round. Overwhelming Storm. Score this in an end phase if you have more surviving fighters than your opponent. I'm not sure I'd ever take that. Magical Supremacy. Score this in the end phase if your Warbound successfully casts 2 or more spells in the preceding action phase.
Could be quite easy to achieve.
Might try that one. Heavily Armed. Score this in an end phase if 3 or more surviving friendly fighters each have at least 1 upgrade.
That would be better if it wasn't 3 or more. I think there should be 2 or more for the 1 glory.
3 or more would be tough.
Yeah.
Because you're not likely to get it first turn. 3 upgrades out first turn.
Almost not.
So then, and after that, it's all bets are off
People
whether you're going to have 2 people alive.
Yeah. So here we go. These are the Nighthaunt specific ones. I've got Howling Vortex. It's a spell, gambit spell. I need to roll a squiggly, and if I do, the spell is cast, and I can push all enemy fighters up to 1 hex. Could be handy to shove a load of people off of objectives or onto lethal hexes, and it's only enemy fighters, so I don't have to worry about any impact on myself.
Nice.
I've then got Inescapable Vengeance. This is an upgrade for the Briar Queen. When this fighter makes a move or a charge action, instead of moving them normally, you can place them on any starting hex. Any starting hex. Robin pointed this out to me. It's not just any of my starting hexes. It could be any starting hex. So just disappear across the board somewhere else and start stabbing somebody.
Good one to screw up in half.
Yes, very much. Grasping Thorns. This is another reaction for the Briar Queen. After this fighter's successful attack action, you can push the target of that attack action up to 2 hexes, but they must end their push next to this fighter. So it kind of seems a bit rubbish at first, but you can use that to slingshot someone round behind you. So your Briar Queen can run forwards, attack somebody, and then whip them round behind her, and then they can get stormed and swarmed over by a load of chain rasps, possibly. Could be useful, although I'm not sure how much you want your Briar Queen to be in the thick of it, so I'm not sure there. And then we have the Shacklegeist Chains. This is another upgrade for Varklav, and when this fighter's attack action takes an enemy fighter out of action, you gain 1 glory. So it's a bit like Magor's or Garrick's card. They both have one like that as well. Face of Death. This is an upgrade for any chain rasp, so again it'll be interesting to see if that includes the Ever Hanged or not. It's a reaction. During an adjacent enemy fight's attack action, before any dice are rolled, you roll a defense dice, and on a shield or a crit, your opponent rolls 1 fewer dice. So it could be handy to keep you alive and stop your opponent. It does go down to a minimum of 1, so if they're already only rolling 1, doesn't make too much difference. Sudden Appearance. Choose a friendly fighter and place them on any starting hex. Again, any starting hex. Bing! Could really stuff up denial.
Yeah, also good for if you've got you could actually keep your hanged, whatever he's called, at the back, out of the way, wait until you've beefed him up and then teleport him in.
Teleport him forwards, right next to somebody. He'll immediately then inspire and chop somebody up. Maddening Cackle. I do like this one. Play this after an enemy fighter's attack action that fails. The fighter is no longer inspired and cannot be inspired.
Stinky card.
It is. That's a real...
I wonder if you're going to put that in your deck.
Oh, no, it doesn't look that good. I'm going to have that one. Then got Grasping Chains. Each friendly chain rasp providing support counts as 2. Very handy. You get those assists in. And then I'm on to my objectives. The Vengeful Dead, which I score if all surviving friendly fighters are inspired.
At least 3.
At least 3. That might not be that hard to do.
No.
Depends. It could be quite easy to pull off. You just got to run up and just swarm your opponent. Then I've got Vengeful Advance. Score this in an end phase if all of my surviving friendly fighters are in my opponent's territory. So it's a bit like a
Mini Conquest.
Mini Conquest. You just get 1 for it, but you can add that if you're going that way. It's just an extra glory. And then we've got Drag Them Down. Score immediately if 3 or more friendly fighters make a successful attack action. I'm not sure how many attacks you can do, at least in the first round, but possibly after the first round you
It's
might
2
do more.
glory.
It is 2 glory.
But it's... I have a feeling...
You're going to sacrifice being able to move everybody to do those charges early on if you want that.
Well, you can use your push... Oh no, because it's still an action, isn't it?
It's still an action, so
yes,
I mean,
also,
2 glory...
2 of your attacks... Sorry... some of your men are much better attacking than others. So
yes.
If you can keep pushing it, you probably want to keep attacking with the same guy rather than 3 different guys.
Yes,
It's
and
just
you also...
a small bit of experience.
You also don't want to just send in one person piecemeal each time, because they'll go in and die, and go in and die, and go in and die. So that's a double-edged sword, that one. That might be handy mid to late game,
Yeah, I was going to say, towards the end.
And then the last one is As Nagash Commands, officially the best card in the deck.
It doesn't matter what it does.
It's got Nagash's name in it, so it's going in my deck. Nagash is, I think, my favourite character from all of the Warhammer lore ever. So this one is score in the 3rd end phase if no enemy fighters are holding any objectives. Could be handy if you get that, keep hold of it, and then you've got the spell which shoves all your opponent's one, or if you've just got a good old-fashioned Earthquake or Concussion in your deck.
Or you're playing Stormcast and you've got 3 people and they just happen not to be on them at the time.
All dead.
All dead, yes,
That's also a winner here, because that would actually count on this one.
Guys, that's all the cards. We hope you found that useful. If you want any more specifics, do put some comments below. Do check out our other videos. We've got a playthrough video coming up. We've got an unboxing video if you want to have a look at the contents of the box, and we also have a sort of what's different video to show you as well.
And they're all in the link in the descriptions below and will have been flashed up above at the same time. So until next time, bye!